Okay, so let us talk today. Now we start talking about the Avelut.
No?
Right. We want to talk about the Avelut or mourning practices in the Omer, which in general is a huge problem when you look at the calendar, the way it is presented in the Torah. The Torah gives us one day as a fast day, it's Yom Kippur, right? Other than that, there are no days in the Jewish calendar, in the Torah calendar, that are days of sorrow. It's all, even Yom Kippur, is an opportunity to do teshuvah. It's a spiritual concept. And then we have the three pilgrimage holidays: Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, and Kippur. So in between Pesach and Shavuot, we have a period called Omer. This period, which is 49 days, is a joyous time. It starts with Ketzir Se'orim, harvesting barley on Pesach, and continues all the way to Shavuot, where people harvest the wheat. So there are people for farmers, the time of harvest, Haga Asif, Haga Katsir, it's festive times. This is when you bring the abundance of the blessing of God into your house. Of course, you have to be happy, and the Torah mentions nothing of that. So even if we understand that at a certain period something happened that caused us certain sorrow, it cannot completely override the atmosphere that the Torah attaches to Sefirat HaOmer. And we actually see that with the fast days that we have. The fast days that we have today, let's put the Omer aside for a second. We have Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is the day in which the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. There are three other fast days that are related to the destruction of the temple, and they are Asara B'Tevet, in which the siege was put around Yerushalayim, the fast of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, in which the walls were breached, and then Tzom Gedalia, which is post-destruction, and that is when the governor of Israel, of Yehuda, was killed by rebels and caused Melech Bavel to come and destroy whatever was left. So we have three fast days that are related to the Hurban. But they were not, after the first temple, there were, some of them related to the first temple, they were cancelled. Because people came back to Eretz Israel and rebuilt the Beit HaMikdash. Right? And the Navi says, already on the first Beit HaMikdash, it says, Tzom HaRevi'i v'Tzom HaChamishi v'Tzom HaShevi'i v'Tzom HaAsiri yihu lebeit Yisrael lמשתה ולשמחה והאמת והשלום אהבו. It says all these fast days will turn into holidays and love, peace, and amity. This is what it says. Which means that once we moved away from them, even though something terrible happened in the past, but it was remedied, it was healed, that's it. You have to move on. And as a matter of fact, especially when you look at the 2 days of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, they are not the original dates. People say, no, this is the day that we mourn the destruction of both temples. It's not. The days were not exactly Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av for the first temple. It was the 27th of Tammuz and the 9th of and the 10th of Av. And then in the second temple also a little different, but the rabbis merged them into one day so not to make it too heavy for people. Then at the time of the Gemara, they discuss the fast days, and the Chachamim say, Tisha B'Av you have to keep, but the other fast days, Ratzu mit'anin. They say that if there's war in the world, everybody has to fast. But if there's shalom, Ratzu mit'anin, no Ratzu mit'anin, you don't have to fast. It's up to you. It's up to me, and it's an individual choice. Even the three fast days of Asara B'Tevet, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, and the Gimel B'Tishrei, Tzom Gedalia. As it happened, we were always in a situation of persecutions and wars and all that, right? And those three fast days were kept. It should have been that once we established the state of Israel, and especially now when we look, the state of Israel is almost 70 years old. As much as there is terrorism and war in the world, Am Yisrael is not in an existential danger. Am Yisrael will survive. The Holocaust is behind us. We survive that, we will survive all obstacles. We're not in a situation where there is persecution specifically against the Jews. We have problems, like all political problems. Technically, this should have been considered as Eid Shalom, and the 3 fast days should be lifted. The problem is that once something gets into the system, it's very hard to take it out. But this is with the fast days, that they are connected to a national disaster of the destruction of the temple. But with the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, if we say it's the students of Rabbi Akiva, it falls under a category called Avelut Yeshana. Avelut, mourning, right? That we mourn for someone, but it's already ancient. It's something, even with a relative, the halacha says, if someone heard that a relative passed away, but he heard it a year later, 2 years later, he doesn't do the regular Avelut. Even though now it's the first time he hears it, it's Avelut Yeshana. This happened in the past. So we're talking about something that happened, Rabbi Akiva, 132 to 135. This is something that happened almost 2,000 years ago. And it's not Avelut about the disaster of Beit HaMikdash, but about specific individuals. Even if you say that we want to sit Shiv'ah for each and every one of the 24,000 people, that would take 460 years. They already passed. And in reality, this is more or less what happened. After about 500 years, people realized that's it. Avelut Yeshana, we don't have to do it anymore. And it started to become a very sporadic thing, only in certain places, and only in Babylonia, like I mentioned yesterday, because it was near Eretz Israel. They still remembered the story of the war and everything. And the minhag was, at the time of the Geonim, the heads of the yeshiva in Bavel, the minhag was, it says, minhag kol Israel, shelo lisa isha. They said you cannot get married on those days. Aval le'arez ulkadesh shapir dami, but to do engagement or to have the shidduch, just the first step, is okay. But if someone decided to have a wedding, we don't tell him anything. Meaning, when would this happen that there's no weddings? If someone comes to the rabbi and says, "Can I have a wedding next week?" No, you'd better wait. But it was not a prohibition. Now, but we'll ask this question: how can someone have a wedding without the rabbi? What do you mean, kafatz v'kanas and on shimoto? Right? True. So this is when we look at things that are written 1,500 years ago. We think that they had the same system as we have today. Today, you cannot have a wedding without a rabbi. Why? Because the rabbis created a syndicate, right? I don't want to say mafia, but okay. It's like, no, it's not good. It's not healthy. That as people have to go to the rabbi to do kiddushim, not healthy. If someone wants to invite a rabbi, a friend, to say, you officiate the kiddushim, beautiful, why not? Is a friend of the family. But I have seen unfortunately, many weddings where rabbis came and do the kiddushin, and they know nothing about the family. There's no personal touch, there's no connection. When the Geonim tell us that Misha kafatz v'kanas en on shimoto, that if you did the wedding, it's fine, because the rabbi was not involved. People do the kiddushim, they get witnesses, they ask one of the friends to say the barachot, or the hatan says the sheva barachot. Who needs the rabbi? Sorry to say that, you don't need the rabbi for kiddushim. That's I know.
You don't actually.
If you ask me, I'll come for Mazat Hashem for your children. But
sure, no, I'm saying so you really don't need the rabbi to get married.
No, you don't need the rabbis to get married. Actually, in Israel, but it's not done in a good way. Sometimes they don't have a rabbi available to send to the couple because it's the responsibility of the state. So they send the clerk, pakit shel misrad harabanut, and there were many. I would say unpleasant situations. Not that the halacha was not kept, but the clerk came with the mentality of a bureaucrat, and people felt uncomfortable. So But we need someone official, I guess. This is the reason why it took root, because we feel that we need someone official to give the blessing, and to bless the which is beautiful. It's important, but it should not become a business. It should not become something that is controlled, by. I can list to you organizations, rabbis who are charging exorbitant sums of money to do kiddushin. The previous chief rabbi of Israel, Ashkenazi chief rabbi, Rabbi Metzger, him also, but this is a kosher person. Other guy, there's so many lawsuits against him because of this issue. That's not right. So go back to this. Before the rabbis controlled the whole kiddushin industry, the rabbi said, the Geonim, if you come and ask me if I want to do a wedding, it's more a situation where the rabbi didn't feel comfortable doing the wedding and the Omer, but he wouldn't tell the man, the Hatan, not to do it. So that is what we have at the time of the Geonim. And like I said, with time, this minhag dissipated. Less and less people would do it, until Rabbi David Abu Darham, who wrote a book of minhagim in Sefarad in Spain, says, "B'miktzat mekomot nahagu." Some places have the minhag, right? Now, so already in Spain in the 12th century, most people didn't do that. Now, it's interesting to see when rabbis today quote the halacha, they have two sources. On one hand, they look at the literature from Babylonia, where it says, "Nahagu bekol Israel." This is a widespread minhag. And they look at Abu Darham, who wrote in Spain, and he says some places have the minhag. So there are two contradicting opinions. So they say, it seems like it was a widespread minhag because we have a source that it says it's widespread. But you have to use historical tools. That's very, very important. And specifically amongst Sephardic rabbis, the historical knowledge is extremely important to understanding halakha. Just like a doctor asks for your medical history, because otherwise he doesn't know all the reasons and factors that cause whatever you have now. So also with halakha. As a matter of fact, we have interesting teshuvah by Rabbi Yosef Meshash, an amazing Talmid Chacham, like unbelievable. But he writes a review of a book that was published by the children, by the descendants of one of the greatest scholars of Morocco, Rabbi Ishaq bin Walid. Ishaq bin Walid is one of the greatest scholars of Morocco.
From Rabat.
So Rabbi Meshash says, it's very nice that you wrote about the descendants wrote about the author, that he was a great tzaddik, he was a great scholar. It's beautiful. He says, we're missing two important details. Where did he live and when? He says, I cannot understand the halakha fully without knowing the historical and geographical context. Amazing, right? It's a modern science with 100% sign on this. So the same thing here. I have two sources that contradict. One says, all over Israel, this is the minhag. The other one says, miktzat mekomot. So let's see, where and when were they written? The one that says it's done all over was written in Babylonia in the 7th century. The one that says some people is written in Spain in the 12th century, which means the Gaonim in Bavel, who controlled a more limited area, said all over our territories it's a minhag. But 500 years later, people don't keep it anymore. So the reality is, only Miktzat Mekomot did that. Now, again, I mentioned this yesterday, this minhag picked up in Germany after the Crusades. And then from there, it spread again to Spain. Even though the Abu Darham says people don't do it, it was imported to Spain. What happened? The Crusades, the first Crusades in 1096. This is a disastrous event, calamity for the communities in northern France and Germany. And we all know what the Crusades are. I mean, I think Jews know, but in the non-Jewish world, this is covered up. You go to a bookstore, go to any bookstore, Barnes and Noble, and go to the history section and pick up a book about the Crusaders. or even the children's section. They are glorified. Their uniform, their shields, their swords. We have Ivanhoe and all kind of romantic novels about them and the way they are depicted in movies. But they were a bunch of murderers, riffraff. So we had Ivanhoe, right? So we had 120,000 people left Germany in the 11th century. Pope Urban II and the German emperor prompted them to leave. What they wanted actually was, they wanted to get rid of all the rebellious elements in them. People with no money, people with no education, the farmers, the peasant. So they said, go to Israel and fight with the heretics. Go kill the Muslims. And they say, on the way, any heretic that you kill, you go directly to Olam Haba. You go to Gan Eden. It's wonderful. I'm going to get to kill people, take their money, right? Do whatever I want and go to heaven. Beautiful, right? But you can't ask for more than that. It's a great deal, right? So that they did that. 90% of them died on the way because of diseases and other things, but they also managed to kill thousands of people along the way. Only 12,000 survived in the first crusade. 120,000. 12,000 survived, 120,000 went. On the way, they destroyed the Jewish communities of Worms and Speyer and Mainz and Cologne and Trier, and along the way.
That's what they have Yizkor.
That's why we have Yizkor. That's why, and a lot of minhagim. That's why the Beracha of Anoten La Ya'if Koach, he who re-energizes the weak, was established by the rabbis in Germany after the Crusade, because they needed to give people hope. They need to strengthen their spirit. So what happened is, after the Crusades, people looked at, picked up that minhag. Oh, we have this ancient minhag of fasting or practicing mourning on those days. And you can imagine, the following year, immediately, it's like after 9/11, the year after 9/11, nobody would have a wedding on 9/11.
Right.
Today, I don't think so. That's it. It's sort of. But let's imagine that 10 years after 9/11, Haz v'Shalom, another thing would have happened exactly on the same day, right? So it's an override. Now it's another. It deepens the wound. So for them, the following year after the Crusades, they look back and says, how many people died? The whole community. We can rejoice on those days. So from Pesach till the 20th of Sivan, meaning 2 weeks after Shavuot, they had Avelut for 11 weeks. And it went on for about 100 years like that. 11 weeks Avelut, and then they cut it down to 7 weeks. And then, at a certain point, they couldn't do 7 weeks even. Is that also too much? So they needed a break. So they found a way to squeeze in 1 day of take a break, and this day is Lag BaOmer. Now, how we got to Lag BaOmer is another story. Why exactly Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer? And this most probably, I'm saying most probably, because the literature is not clear on that, and I'll show you how confused and convoluted the literature is. Most probably it's because, according to Kabbalistic traditions, that was the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away, but that is only recorded in the Zohar, and the Zohar was only revealed in the 13th, 14th century. So you understand that Lag BaOmer minhag of to take a break in the middle of the Omer is a much later minhag. Now we'll talk more about the Avelut, but originally, just say this, Avelut on the Omer was limited to 2 factors only: marriage and haircut. Not shaving, because nobody shaved. It was impossible to shave on a regular basis unless you use a razor, and people didn't use razor, so people didn't shave. But today that everybody shaves regularly, there's no kavod during the Omer having an unkempt appearance. If you shave every day, you keep shaving during the Omer. Even with haircut, there were places where people used to have a minhag of taking a haircut on Friday for Shabbat, on Rosh Chodesh. And then later on, we'll look at the sources. Some communities, for them, the marriage was more important. And because of marriage, they extended it to music and dances and everything. And some, especially the Kabbalists, were more concern about taking a haircut. So these are the two things. But buying a new garment, or building a new house, or moving into a new house, all these things were not included in the original minhag. It's just because of our mentality of paranoia and always being persecuted. It was easy to say we have to add another element. Like I said on Pesach, I think today is extremely important for us Jews today, to reclaim the happiness that the Torah prescribed for us. So I gave the example with the bitter herbs on Pesach. They used to call the lettuce was maror, and what I remember as a child, from 30, 40 years ago, lettuce used to be much more bitter. But they kept, breeding it. Now lettuce is sweet. Only the core has a little bitterness. Some people want to get, what do you call arugula, or all kind of endives that are very bitter. And I say the opposite. No, maybe God is showing us, the bitterness is slowly going away. We're having, we're living in a better world, enough that it's called maror. You don't have to really make it bitter. So the same with the Omer. Just, you call it Omer, but we have to work on lifting all these bands and not causing ourselves to suffer or to feel miserable for another period in the year. But we'll talk about this further later, and we'll stop here.